What's up guys, welcome to the Chess Giant. This is Solomon Ardell, and in today's video we're going to be covering one of my favorite hyperdynamic defensive systems against the move f4 with the bird's opening. And this defensive system actually leads into the bird's eye view trap, and it all starts off with the moves knight f6 and following knight f3, which you're going to see 9 times out of 10, the move d6. Now here there's a ton of different options for white. White will usually go into a move like e3 or g3, including moves like knight c3, but sometimes white will play the move b3. I myself, as well as many master and grandmaster level players, have played b3 right away, looking to fianchetto the bishop, putting pressure on e5 with the bishop, pawn, and knight on f3. But little did I know, by playing b3 immediately, now black has this crazy looking move e5, and I would give black the clear edge here no matter what white plays. By playing e5, we're putting pressure on f4 as well as e4 ideas, kicking the knight off of f3, and we're going to go over what happens if white takes the pawn. But what if white doesn't want to take the pawn on e5? Well, if white plays a move like d3, this is kind of making b3 a waste of time. If d3 is played, we can simply take the pawn on f4. Following bishop takes f4. Now the light squares will be weak on the queen side of the board, so usually white will instead play a move like e3, simply looking to take back with the e-pawn. But we're not going to take this pawn, but instead push with e4, attacking the knight on f3. Now the knight could go back to g1, but usually white will not want to go straight back to this starting position, in which case all of white's pieces will have not even changed their places 4 moves into the game. So here, if white plays a move like knight d4, we now play c5. Now if knight e2, the bishop and queen can't even move. So in a master level game, white played the move bishop b5 check, attacking the king. Idea being, after a move like bishop d7, trade off, play knight e2, and white has a little bit more space. But here we don't play bishop d7, but instead king e7. Absolutely crazy looking move. I usually don't recommend playing a move like this and move 6 in the game. But the whole idea is that we're attacking the knight on d4, and it can't come to f5 because of the bishop on c8. So following the move knight e2, we now play a6, and yes, we didn't trade off because now this bishop on b5 is trapped. Following the move bishop c4, we continue with d5, and there's simply nowhere for this bishop to go. Following castling kingside, we take that bishop off the board, continue with h5, expanding on the king side of the board, and here we're simply up a piece. So e3 gives black a huge edge. What about the move f takes e5? Well, we're now going to take back with d takes e5, and we're going to go over what happens if white again takes the pawn on e5 sitting right there. But what happens if white wants to stop the move e4 and instead just play d3? Well, guess what? We still play e4. Idea being, after d takes e4, we now trade off, and after king takes d1, take on e4. We're now threatening knight f2 with check, attacking both the king and the rook on h1. So following king e1, we now play knight c6 with ideas of bishop f5, castling queenside, because our king hasn't moved, unlike white's. So we still have the option of castling. Knight b4 ideas are in the air, and I would give the clear edge to black here because of the advantage in development and the coordination and centralization of the pieces. So even if d3 is played, we're still going to push with e4. So what happens if white takes this pawn on e5? Now I must admit, guys, I'm a little bit confused because whenever I look up chess videos on YouTube or go to articles online, they all recommend the move bishop d6, which I don't even think is close to the best move for black here. The whole idea with bishop d6 is that after knight f3, we now play knight g4, and I would still give a slight edge to black here. We have a pretty good attacking edge on the king side of the board, especially because this pawn on f2 is not there, and it's very easy for white to fall into trouble here. The obvious temptation is to just play h3 and get rid of the knight, but if h3 is played, we have bishop g3 checkmate, game over. And here, if a move like bishop b2, we now play knight takes h2, idea being, after, say, a move like knight takes back, the g3 square is now open. I do want to mention that bishop b2 is not the best move. I mean, this seems okay because it appears at least as if black really doesn't have a ton going on. I mean, this may look scary, but what does black really have? Obviously, we know now that we just take the pawn on h2, but it may seem as if this bishop can't come to g3 and the queen can't come to h4. I mean, really by taking on h2, we're simply freeing up that g3 square. So if a move like g3 here, I think that this is probably white's best option, but I mean, black's still simply better. We play queen f6, going on this long diagonal, and, say following a move like c3, blocking the rook. We now simply play castling kingside, following d3, play rook e8. I mean, this is a clearly better game for black, but I actually think that black has much better. The reason I don't believe bishop d6 is the best move for black is because now white can simply play bishop b2. I mean, it's tempting to bring the knight back, but with perfect play here, I think white is completely fine. Here we play the move knight e4, threatening to play queen h4 with check, and following g3, take that pawn off the board. So we now have the move knight f3, stopping queen h4 from taking place, in which case we now play knight g3. Absolutely crazy idea, attacking that rook. Idea being, if the knight gets taken, we simply have a checkmate in one. And following rook g1, we now continue with bishop g4. I mean, this looks very intimidating, but here white is completely fine, following the move e3. And now this knight has to take. I mean, now this is actually a threat because after bishop takes g3, king e2 can simply be played and we're going to be down a full piece. So now we have to take that bishop off the board, continue with a move like castling kingside, and after h3, continue with bishop h5. But now after knight c3, I believe that this is a pretty even game. I mean, yes, this king on f1 is a little bit awkwardly placed, but there's not a ton of attacking chess here for black. Our next move is going to be the move g4 for white, attacking the bishop. If bishop g3 here, trying to take that square, a move like knight e4, centralizing the knight and really activating the bishop on b2 comes into play. I simply don't think that this is black's best option. So instead of the bird's eye view trap with bishop d6, idea being knight f3, we then have knight g4 with a better game. I don't recommend this because of bishop d2 simply defending the knight. But here I do believe that black has a clearly winning game, and I'm still shocked that I haven't seen any master or grandmaster level players recommend this move, queen d4. And now black is simply winning this game. Now this queen attacks the rook on a1 and the knight on e5, and there's no way for white to save both. Following a move like c3, we simply just take the knight on e5, and we're up a full piece plus development. And if a move like bishop d2, which I guess saves both, well, now we just win a bishop. And following a move like knight c3, continue now with a move like knight to e4, really activating this knight, attacking the knight on c3, idea being if knight takes e4, our queen now gets out. Black has a clearly won game here. But guys, starting back at this original position with f4, I still really like this knight f6 followed by d6 idea, looking to play e5 in the case of b3. If b3 is not played, we almost have a King's Indian defense type game. We can continue with knight d7, g6, bishop g7, castling kingside, rook e8, e5 advancing in the center of the board. c6 and b5 are also options. This is a very flexible system for black. But in the case of b3 right away, we're now able to play e5 because after taking and knight takes e5, we're not going to play bishop d6, but instead the much better and much simpler queen d4, simply attacking the knight and the rook on a1. This is a very dangerous system for black, aggressively attacking the bird's opening, and unlike the immediate move of e5 for black, usually against this bird's eye opening trap type system, white is rarely well prepared for it. If you'd like to learn the theory behind the old Benoni defense, a dynamic system against d4, click the video to the left. If you'd like to explore more chess openings in general, click the playlist to the right. Leave a comment to let me know what other videos you'd like to see covered on this channel, and as always, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.